Hi, I'm Jen Newton, the registered dietitian at the Skylights Wellness Center. So today we're back again to do a little experimenting in the kitchen. Today we're going to go through making our own home-baked tortilla chips as well as making broccomole. So we're going to get started with our tortilla chips. Making our own tortilla chips at home is a great way to use up corn tortillas that we may have left over from another purpose, or it could be a great way of helping us to have corn tortilla chips available if we forgot to buy them at the store or they weren't available. So basically I'm taking a large knife. You can also use a pizza cutter for this as well, and I'm cutting these into 6 pieces. You can cut them into 4 pieces. Just know if you do cut them into 4 pieces, they'll take a little bit longer to cook in the oven. From there, knife didn't go all the way through. From here, we're just going to put them in a single file, or single layer, I should rather say, on our baking tray. And we've preheated our oven to about 350 degrees. If you have a convection oven, that feature will actually make these cook faster and a little more evenly, but it is not necessary to get a good product. So to help them crisp up, we're going to be giving them a light spray with a cooking spray. Again, we don't want it too heavy to make them soggy. If you don't have this available or would prefer, you could use something like olive oil or canola oil. I'd suggest pouring a small amount into a bowl and using something like a pastry brush to be able to lightly brush the tortilla chips with that oil. Once we've got that sprayed, we can season them as we want. This time around, I'm going to do just salt and pepper. So I've added some salt and pepper to a small bowl. I have clean hands, and I'm just going to sprinkle that over my chips. Then I'm going to stick these in the oven, and then we will get started on our broccomole. Okay, so while our tortilla chips are cooking, we're going to get started with our broccomole. So I love this recipe because it's a healthier version of guacamole, and I know that tends to be kind of a death sentence for a food. If people hear the word healthy, you don't want to try it, but I assure you this is absolutely delicious. It's a way of helping us to lower calories as well as get a few extra servings of vegetables into our dish. So with this recipe, it calls for fresh broccoli, it calls for green onions, some fresh cilantro, and a few other ingredients that when we're focusing on trying to use things from our pantry or what happens to be available, we may need to make some substitutions. So in this case, we're going to be using frozen broccoli in place of the fresh broccoli. Now we can do this because the recipe calls for us cooking our fresh broccoli. So we're just, instead of cutting the fresh broccoli and cooking it on the stove, we're going to be using a steam in the bag microwavable version to get our cooked broccoli. I don't have any green onions in my refrigerator, so instead I'm going to be using some chopped chives. In place of the cilantro that the recipe calls for, I'm going to be using some dried parsley. This is a great substitution for people that can't stand the taste of cilantro because it tastes like soap. Those poor people. We are also going to be using lime juice that is jarred instead of using fresh limes, but if you have fresh limes, definitely want to go along with that. And again, just some different substitutions that we can use as well. We need something to help kind of with a little creaminess, so we're going to be using sour cream. In this case, we could also use cream cheese, or we could use tofu if that's what we happen to have available as well. Okay, so I'm going to get started cooking the broccoli, and then we'll come back and get it all blended together. Okay, so we've cooked our broccoli and drained it off because there was a little bit of moisture with it, and added everything, all of our ingredients into our food processor. Now there are options for personalizing this, and one of them that I like to use is onion, but since I don't have any fresh onion in my house, I'm going to be using some diced dried onion. So I'm just going to sprinkle some in there, again, as much as you want. This is the time if you like something a little spicier, you can use some jalapenos. If you don't have jalapenos, you can use chili powder or Tabasco sauce, or something along those lines to give it a little bit kick. Now, we've got all of our ingredients added in. We're going to put the top on and let it blend. So you'll know your tortilla chips are done when they're crispy and a light golden brown. If you try to break them and they tend to bend a little bit, then you want to leave them in the oven for a few minutes longer. But be sure to check them frequently because you don't want to overcook them. With our broccomole, we'll know it's done when everything's blended together smooth and we come out with this nice, delicious, beautiful colored broccomole. We're serving this today with some BB bell pepper, so nice color presentation. Again, we eat with our eyes first, so make it look good, as well as with our chips. We can also serve it with any Mexican dish or other dishes that you would typically use guacamole for, or just as a pleasant snack by itself. So I hope you guys enjoyed this. I invite you guys to check out other recipes that we have on Facebook at Sky Lakes Wellness Center.